Welcome back, everybody. In the last video, we set up in anonymously with Firebase. In this video, we're going to set up sign in with Apple. And we're going to use our same Firebase auth service class. So we set up Firebase auth service in the last video. One thing I forgot to do is actually just move the user auth info to its own file. So I'm going to cut the user auth info. And let's go and in our services, in our auth, let's create a folder called models. And then let's paste in our user auth info in here. I will import, I think, Swift UI so we can get sendable. So we created a second initializer just for the Firebase user. And you'll see here that we cannot find type user in scope. So I'm going to need to go ahead and import Firebase into this project, or Firebase auth, so I get access to this user. But I actually don't want this to be coupled to Firebase, just in case I end up removing Firebase from my application. So what we're going to do is actually cut this. We're going to create a new file here. It's called an empty file. Let's call this user auth info as well. We'll do plus Firebase. And in here, I will import Firebase auth. I will cut the initializer for the Firebase user. And let's just create an extension of user auth info and paste in our initializer here. Just so that Firebase is only imported into this little section of user auth info and not actually in the full model here. Next, we're going to start working with the actual sign in with Apple. So inside our app here, we have two places where we can sign in with Apple. The first one is if the user comes through our app and they get into the app without, we're going to let them get into the app without signing in. When they get to this screen here, we shouldn't really have sign out if they haven't actually signed in yet. It doesn't really make much sense. So we added some logic for here to go ahead and connect their Apple account. Let's jump back into our settings view. And we already have a isAnonymousUser Boolean, which I guess is default to false. So here, every time this screen appears, let's just do an onAppear. Let's create a function. We'll do it at the bottom maybe. Let's do a func called setCountStatus. So here we'll just set isAnonymousUser equal to, and then let's go ahead and pull in our environment. We'll do the auth service and we'll call this auth service. And here we'll say auth service dot get authenticated user dot is anonymous. If that is equal to true, then is anonymous will be true. So every time this screen appears, we'll call set anonymous. Let's go ahead and build and run our application to the simulator. I'm using the simulator and not the previews right now because the previews are going to have a different auth lifecycle. So now if I open up this screen, we should have a save and backup account button because the user is anonymous. So if I click this and then I click sign in with Apple, I want to actually go ahead and sign in with Apple. Let's go to our Firebase auth service. Let's create another function in our Firebase auth service, func sign in Apple. Async throws, and let's return the exact same information. So this should be here as well. On my YouTube channel, I have a whole video on how to sign in with Apple through Firebase. And in this, it's an hour long. We go through all of these steps to create some custom sign in with Apple logic. And I am not going to go through all those steps in this video. I think it's a really good example of some really cool code that we write. We build it and then we convert it to async await and make it fully reusable. If you guys want to learn how to do that, I would recommend watching this video. But I am not going to do that for this course again because we're focused on architecture. So I will link that video below, and I'm also going to link a package that I put onto my GitHub. I bundled up a bunch of the code from that video and made it reusable. So this is the part of sign in with Apple that is not related to Firebase. So let's go ahead and copy the URL from this repo and let's bring it into our application. So in my code base, let's go file, package dependencies. Let's paste in that sign in with Apple async and we'll add package. Add it to the target, add package. And now let's follow the docs that I put in the sign in with Apple, these amazing documentation here. And let's just copy it and paste it here. So here we should be able to import sign in Apple async. and it just gives us this helper sign in function. Looks like we need to await. This sign in with Apple helper is on the main actor, which our Firebase auth service is not right now. All right, so then we sign in and we get this response, and I'm just gonna move a little bit faster here. We want to, let's get a credential from Firebase. So this is from just sign in with Apple, and now this part's gonna be through Firebase, and we'll call .credential. This is all in Firebase's sign in with Apple docs, which I will also link below. We'll look for the credential with provider ID, ID token, and a raw nonce. So I think this one. Let's triple click, Control M. The provider ID we don't have yet. Let's just put a blank string. The ID token will be the response dot token, and the nonce is going to be the response dot nonce. Provider ID. So if I want to look at the provider IDs here, if I look at the auth provider ID, it's also in Firebase's docs. It's basically just these raw strings here. So I think I can actually access the provider ID. Let's make this provider ID .apple, and maybe we have to call it .raw value. Or maybe we could just do .apple. Great. After we get the credential, we need to actually sign in with that credential. So we'll say let, and now this part is going to be the exact same as this. So I'll copy this, paste it here, except this will be sign in with credential, sign in with, and we'll pass in the credential. I don't want to copy this code twice. So really what we're doing here is just getting the data result from the auth data result here. We're converting this into this. Let's just create a quick extension of auth data result, type that Firebase gives us back. Let's make this a variable called as auth info, just something generic. This will be of type the result that we want. Let's go ahead and open the brackets. Let's just copy this, paste it here. The user is going to be the user inside the auth data result that we were in, and the additional information, we can just get rid of the word result. Cool. Up here, let's just go ahead and return result.asAuthInfo. And then I'll copy that and I'll paste that here as well. Great. Now we should be able to sign in with Apple. Let's go to this screen, the create account screen, create account view. Let's create a function at the bottom, func on sign in Apple. Let's create a task, and we'll do a do catch. Let's pull in from the environment our @environment \auth service private var auth service. Let's go ahead and say let result equals try await auth service dot sign in Apple. All right, in here we'll just print out did sign in with Apple. We're going to add analytics later in the course, so I'm not really concerned about these print statements. And then if it is successful, let's dismiss this sheet here. So we'll pull in the var dismiss, call this dismiss, and we'll just trigger dismiss. If there's an error, we'll just print out the error signing in with Apple. So let's take the on sign in Apple pressed, put it in our button. Let's build it. And if it is successful, then we should dismiss the screen automatically. So I'll pull up my Firebase project quick. And my Firebase user is anonymous right now. Let's reload, make sure it's still anonymous. Let's go ahead and click our save and backup, sign in with Apple, and it is not working. Error signing with Apple, authorization failed because we did not finish setting it up. I am a genius. In our authentication console, let's change our sign-in method. Let's add a new provider. Make sure it is Apple. Let's go ahead and enable, and then let's click save. So we've enabled Apple in Firebase, and now we also need to come into our AI chat course into our project target, signing capabilities. And here we also need to enable the capability for sign in with Apple. Double click on that and it should pop up down here. If you already have it enabled, it will be down here as well. You do need an Apple developer account to use sign in with Apple. Now let's go ahead and build and run it one more time. I will bring up the console, see if any errors print out again. User's already authenticated. Let's go to our settings, sign in with Apple. And I'm not signed in on the simulator, so I will sign in on the simulator quick. All right, let's try this one more time. I'm just going to rerun the app one more time, a fresh run. Let's jump to the settings, save and backup account, sign in with Apple. We get our modal popping up. And I'm going to hide my email so we can just see what that looks like. Otherwise, it'll say my actual email. So I will sign in here. And if it is successful, it should dismiss the sheet. Great. Did sign in with Apple and it did work, but clearly this did not update. So if I close the settings and I open it up again, we should see that now says sign out. So what we need to do is just on our settings screen, when we create these sheets where we showed that, we'll do a .sheet. There actually is a onDismiss method as well, so onDismiss. So here I'll bind to the show create account view. I'll click enter on dismiss and enter on content. Let's put our content back in this closure. And then on dismiss, let's also call set the user anonymous account status. Cool. Let's go ahead and wrap up the Firebase authentication with the sign out and delete account logic. Jump into the Firebase auth service, and in here we're going to create a function called sign out. This will be try auth.auth.signout, and this throws. And then we'll do a func delete account. For a delete account, first we need the user profile in Firebase. So we'll say guard let user equals auth.auth.current user, else. If we don't have a user and we're trying to delete an account, we're going to throw an error. So let's create an enum called auth error. Let's make it a localized error so that we can customize the error description. Case user not found. And the error description, we will then switch on self, case user not found. Let's return current authenticated user not found. Let's throw the auth error dot user not found. And then here we'll call user dot delete, which looks like it's async await, async throws. So we will try await. This has to be async as well. So now we have our two more methods. Let's jump back to the settings view, and we have our account section. On create account pressed, on sign out pressed. Let's create another function on delete account pressed, and I will copy the name of that and move down to the bottom. So sign out, and we have func on delete account. All right, so we need to do some logic. Let's delete this, and let's put the dismiss in here. So first we want to do catch. Let's go ahead and try auth service dot sign out. If it is successful, we'll go ahead and dismiss the screen. We're going to reuse the dismiss screen for the delete account. Let's do a private func dismiss screen, and I will cut this code, put it here. So if it is successful, we'll call dismiss screen. If not, we'll show an error to the user. Sorry, this will be async. Let's await dismiss screen. So if we get an error here, let's put that error on the screen. Let's jump to our chat view where we did that error work, where we have the show custom alert. Let's jump into our settings view. And on the screen, I'm going to put show custom alert. Jump back to the chats view, show alert here. And I'll jump back to the settings view, show alert here. And then let's go to our error and just say show alert equals any app alert from the error that we're passing in here. Let's do the same thing for the delete account. So I'm just going to copy this code. We're going to do something slightly different for delete account. because delete account is really sensitive, right? If the user clicks this on accident, then they're going to delete all their account and account history, and then that's a big problem. So what we're going to do on delete account is first show a modal that makes them confirm that they want to delete the account before we actually go and delete it. So in here, let's first set show alert equal to any app alert. Let's do option enter, triple click control M. Let's just put a quick title here that says delete account question mark. And then the subtitle will say this action is permanent and cannot be undone. Your data will be deleted from our server forever. Let's go ahead and add some buttons in here. So this needs to be a function that returns any view. So a function that returns any view. And in here we'll put our button. I'm going to look for the one with the title and the role and the action. The title will say delete, the role will be destructive, and the action will then be delete account. So let's create another private func here called on delete account confirmed. And then in here, we're going to actually go and delete our account, similar to what we just did for the sign out press. So I'll copy this, paste it in here, except this will be delete account. We'll have to try await delete account, and then we'll call this from our button here. Let's test this out. I'm going to build it to a simulator quick. All right, user's already authenticated, X71, and we already have a bug in our app. We authenticated the user anonymously, and then we signed them in with Apple, and it created a second account. But really, when we signed them in with Apple, we actually wanted to link their account to the anonymous authentication. We didn't want to create a second version. So we wanted to maintain this user ID when they signed in with Apple. I should have noticed that as soon as we actually logged in. So let's go ahead and make sure that when we sign in with Apple, we are actually going to link to the existing anonymous user ID. Let's just go to the Firebase auth service. So when we sign in with Apple, let's first see if we can link their account rather than signing them into a new account. So let's say here, if let user equals auth.auth current user. So if there is already a user authenticated and that user.is anonymous and we can link their account. So we'll say let result equals try await user.link. So we will link instead of sign in. So I'll put here the credential. Let's go ahead and return. So if this is all true, so there is already an auth user, that user is anonymous, and we are able to link their account to the anonymous account, then we will return this result from the link with the user auth info. Else, if this is not successful, then we'll just create a new account with signing in. So here, let's put some docs, say try to link to existing anonymous account. Then we'll do otherwise sign in to new account. That should fix our problem. But now we're signed into the new account, which is the X71. So let's go to a profile. Let's go ahead and try to sign out of that account. And sign out must have worked because we popped back and then the screen did dismiss. A couple things to notice here. So right now, we signed out of the authentication, but do we have a user ID? We don't actually. So we have a slight bug in our app. What if a user signs out and then they go back into the app right now? Well, all their actions are not going to have a user ID. And we can prove that if we rerun the app right now, it's going to probably assign us a new user ID when we launch this app. See, sign in anonymous success. So let's just jump back to our app view file. Check user status happens every time the app appears, but it can't hurt to also check it when the user switches back to the onboarding view. Let's do here a quick .onChange of the app state .show tab bar. So when the show tab bar changes, we'll get the new value. So the new value is show tab bar being true. We're not going to use the old value. And we'll say if the new value is false, meaning don't show the tab bar, meaning we're back on the onboarding view. Then let's go ahead and create a new task and say await check user status. Let's go ahead and build and run the app one more time. So now user already authenticated, we got B42. Let's get into the application. Let's go to the profile, save and backup account because we're anonymous right now. Let's prove that with our new anonymous ID. In the Firebase dashboard, I should see this anonymous ID. Okay, B42. Now let's sign into Apple, and this time hopefully it links so that we actually maintain that user ID. So sign in successful, the screen dismisses. We have a bug in our app. Let's do some real life debugging. Sorry guys. Why is this not working? Let's print out the error quick. I'm not sure what is going on. We come into our app here. User already authenticated, B42. Sign in back up. Let's go ahead and sign in with Apple. I'm going to go ahead and debug this real quick. I think the root of the problem is actually this case where my Apple ID already has an account here. I'm just going to come into the console just for our debugging purposes. Let's go ahead and delete my Apple ID account. I'll delete, and now I will try one more time to link. So let's go ahead and sign in back up. Let's try it one more time. There we go, and it dismisses, and then sign out updates. If I look at the console, my B42 now turned to an Apple provider, so it did link successfully. Now let's go ahead and sign out. So if I sign out, it should now put me back. And when it changes, I should get a new anonymous ID. So P6UI, so that is correct. And now I can go in as another user. The last part let's do is the sign in. So if I already have an account, right now I am signed into this anonymous account, but I actually want to switch back to my Apple ID account. Now I need to be able to click this and click sign in and then log in here. Let's go ahead and try to sign in here. And we're back to getting the duplicate credential received. Okay, so the problem is that we are actually using this credential twice. We're going to try to use it here, and then we're going to try to use it here. And we actually need to change, if we go and do this, we need to change the credential we're going to use here. So let's refactor this a little bit. So firstly, let's take this if statement here, and let's just make a bigger if statement. So if the user is anonymous, then we need to enter this flow where we're going to try to link. If not, we'll sign in. So in here, let's do a do catch. So we will take our linking code, paste it in here, remove the question mark from the try. So in here, we will try to link to existing account. And if we get the result, we'll then go ahead and return result.authinfo. But if we get an error on the link, we can't just go ahead and reuse the credential. Instead, there's a little bit of custom logic that we need. And I actually Googled this and went on Stack Overflow, and there was a bunch of people that filed bugs in the Firebase SDK for this. But let's cast the error as an NS error. This is a special type of error that has codes in it. So we'll say let auth error equals Firebase's auth error is an auth error code from the error.code. We'll switch on the auth error, and there's a ton of them here. So we're going to here instead we're going to look for the provider already linked as well as the credential already in use. If either of those happen, it's not a real error. So then we're going to perform some action. We'll do default break. Let's put a break in here as well. I'll delete the rest of this. Oh my God, so many errors. All right, delete those. So if we get one of these two, then the Firebase error will give us back a updated credential. So let's go ahead here and say let new, let's say secondary credential, and we'll set it equal to the error.userinfo, and we'll get from the dictionary, there's a key here, which I'm going to just copy and paste. I will link this issue below. I found it on GitHub. Someone else had the exact same problem. I would love to see this added into the Firebase SDK at some point. But this is the new credential. So here we'll say if let this is the new credential as auth credential. Let's go ahead and try here to call the sign in with the secondary credential as with a optional. All right, that was a lot of confusing code that we had to write. So we're only going to try to link if the user is anonymous. So we'll try to link, but if the try to link fails, and it fails for a right reason, so for the reason of providers already linked or the credentials already in use, then let's go ahead and try to get the returned credential from the error, which is, I guess, the updated credential key, and then we should be able to sign in with the updated credential key. But if the user is not anonymous, we'll do our default sign in. That is super confusing, but let's go test it and see if it works now. Let's build it. At the end of this course, I'm going to actually package up a lot of this so we won't have to actually write a lot of this code again. Let's go ahead and sign in with Apple. Let's put your password in, and hopefully it works. Awesome. And it did sign in with Apple. So we should be back to our other user ID. So P6UI was the anonymous one. If I build and run this again, it should say that I'm now signed into my Apple account, B42. Beautiful. And the very last piece that we want to do here is that if we are signing into an account and it's an existing account, we'll assume the user already went through onboarding, right? So if it is not a new user, let's push them into the app rather than having them go through onboarding still. So at the end of onboarding, we have our onboarding completed view. And we added this code here for root update view state. And that's coming from our app state. So I'm going to copy that. Let's jump into our welcome view. Let's pull in our app state. And then in here, let's create a function called, let's do a private func called handle did sign in. So once the user signs in, let's do is new user of type bool. So if is new user, maybe we will do nothing so that the user goes through onboarding. Else, if they're signing in from the welcome screen, but they're not a new user, then let's push into tab bar view. So here we'll call root.update view state, show tab bar set to true. We just need to call this from our create account view. So inside create account view, we're going to need to pass in some sort of function that will look like this from the initializer. And then from in here, we're going to have to call handle did sign in with a Boolean that we're going to need to get back from create account view. So we'll put is new user in, and in the create account view, it won't be called handle did sign in. It'll just be an action that we trigger on did sign in. And we'll pass the new user in here. So create account view will need a function called on did sign in that accepts a Boolean, and then we can trigger this. Let's go into create account view. Let's create a function on did sign in. It'll be a function that accepts a Boolean. We'll give the Boolean a name, so we'll do an underscore for the external name and is new user for the local name. And then this function will return void. We'll wrap it in parentheses and make it optional in case we don't have any special action. Because remember, we're reusing our create account view in the application. So we're only going to really call this method from the welcome implementation of the create account view. So coming down here, so on did sign in, let's call on did sign in. Let's pass in the result.isNewUser. Just like that, it should now compile. And I think that's it for the user authentication. That was a lot of work, probably the most difficult piece of the data that we're going to actually work with. But let's go and make sure our app is fully working. So now I am signed into B42. B42 should be a sign in with Apple account. All right, let's just go ahead and go through onboarding one more time. So now if I go through and let's sign out, make sure sign out works. So if I sign out, it pushes me back to the screen. There should be a new anonymous user ID that I'm now signed into, this one. Let's go through our code base. Let's go through onboarding with the anonymous account. Great. Let's go and try to set up. We're still in an anonymous account, as it knows. Let's try to connect into our sign in with Apple account. So this should now push me back into my B42 account. Let's go and sign in. It looks like that was successful. If I look at my Firebase console, did sign in. It should be back to B42. To confirm it, let's actually delete that account. So let's delete B42. So this should be gone actually after I do this now. Delete the account. Let's confirm deletion. Let's reload. And now my B42 is gone. And the new anonymous user ID that I have here has now been created now that I signed out of my app. Awesome. Let's again go through the onboarding. Finish profile. Let's jump into our settings view. Now let's go ahead and sign in with Apple. So now this should take my anonymous account R2H and it should connect that to my Apple account. Let's reload in here and now that is an Apple account, correct. One more thing to test, we're going to sign out. When I sign out, it should give me a new user ID for a new anonymous account. But if I go and I try to sign in to an existing account, so back to my R2H Apple account, it should now push me back into the application and let me skip onboarding. See if it works. Beautiful. Just like that, we have set up user authentication in our app. It was difficult, probably a little bit more difficult than we hope and expect it to be. Towards the end of the course, I will show you guys how we can just package this up so that we never actually have to write any of this code again. But that is for another video. Thank you guys for watching. This was a long one. Let's wrap up this video with a quick Option Command C. Let's call it a feature. And let's make this sign in with Apple. Let's stage it. Let's commit it. Push it up to GitHub. And the next video will be much easier. So I'll see you guys in the next video.